Today we're talking about the film Resolution from 2012. And this film is the first feature-length film from the filmmakers Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. I'm very big fans of them personally. I haven't seen too much of their stuff, but from what I've seen, it's just straight up my alley, kind of literally films that I would love to make. And now they have a huge opportunity. They're helping making the Marvel show Moon Knight, so that's super cool for them. I believe Justin Benson wrote the movie, and then Aaron Moorhead has the credit for the cinematographer, which is super cool. They're just fully hands-on. Love to see it. In this movie, it stars Peter Ciela and Vinnie Curran. They're pretty much the two during the whole movie. It almost feels like it could be a play in a way, with the main conflict that's going on, but then it derails, and the medium of film is definitely best for this. But going back to the directors for a second, this is their first movie. I don't know the exact order of their next movie, but they've also done films called Spring. I've been meaning to watch that one. I've been looking for somewhere to find it. They've done the movie The Endless, which is a sequel to this film, and it contains some footage from this film. And I will get into The Endless later because they're definitely very connected, and the theories of what's actually happening in this movie are very heavily tied to what was revealed in The Endless. They also did a movie called Synchronic with Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan. That was kind of a mind-bending kind of time travel movie. That's all I'll say, really. But a lot of them, they're very much low-budget, mind-bending, high-concept sci-fi kind of things. A lot of people put the tag Lovecraftian, which is kind of cosmic horror into it, which I dig. They have also done a short film in the feature VHS Viral. I haven't seen any of the VHS movies, but my friends say they're very fun, and I'm sure I would like them. It's just, a collection of a bunch of cool shorts made by notable up-and-coming filmmakers at the time is what I get the impression of. So, I will definitely check that out at some point. And then their current and upcoming projects, they are working on Moon Knight, and I believe they directed a few of the episodes, probably involved in a lot of them. I don't know their exact role, but I know they directed, I believe it was episode 4 at least. I've only seen episode 1, but I'm probably going to watch a lot of them together instead of just as they come out. So that's just, I'm just so happy that they got that opportunity. They started making these movies. This movie, Resolution, it was mainly self-funded, and now there they are. Good for them. And then they have a movie coming up this year. I don't know if it'll get a big cinematic release. It seems to be low budget as well, called Something in the Dirt. Again, another low budget sci-fi concept kind of movie. I put it on my most anticipated of the year, just because I really like them, and I just want to spread the word. And I heard it was at not Cannes, it was at Sundance, I believe. I did not see it, but I heard good things from it. It's just, they make movies that are right up my alley. So let's get into Resolution. So before I get into some of the behind the scenes, which is kind of cool, I will start by talking about the loose plot of the movie. So if you've seen the trailer, the trailer, it's about two friends, I would say about in their 30s. One of them is in this isolated cabin. He is a drug addict, and he's kind of just he's hanging out in this cabin. Don't think he actually owns it. One of his friends gets a message who has a wife and who is pregnant, and he's like, okay, I got to go help my friend here who's in this cabin. So he goes, he sees him, and he knows that his friend needs to detox, go cold turkey off these drugs if he wants a chance to save him. So he handcuffs him to a pipe in the house in order to forcefully get him to detox. And that's the main conflict that we're introduced at the beginning of the movie. And it does work well. Of course, it devolves into other things. As they hang out in this cabin for, I believe it is a week, the entire film, he kind of just goes for walks in the surrounding area, and then weird things start to happen. He starts to get weird messages that seem to be directed at them. They don't know who's leaving them these messages. Not just digital, but things like leaving old tapes. There's a vinyl where he plays, and there's screaming, and then there's pictures, and it gets crazy. So that's kind of a non-spoilery territory summary, but from this point on, we'll definitely will get into some spoilers and some theories because, yeah, this is the kind of movie, kind of like Coherence when I talked about that previously, that I really like talking about the theories and like how the actual sci-fi elements work within this world that was built. So before we get into that, the movie was made for a $20,000 budget, which is great to see. It is very clear that it is very low budget. But I think that a lot of movies that are low budget, just like Coherence, I'll probably compare it to Coherence a few times. The quality of the story and getting me engaged into the sci-fi elements, just that makes up for it 100%. There are definitely some like sound, some Foley that was in the movie that definitely felt more low budget. That's a little less excusable. But hey, it's small moments. A lot of movies have that. But technically, it's well shot for the budget. Nothing crazy. So, yeah, like I said before, the main cast is Peter Silella and Vinnie Curran. So Peter plays Michael, and Vinny plays Chris. Oh man, now I'm mixing up in my head who's who. Let me quickly IMDb this. Michael and Chris. They're two default names that I'm kind of having trouble pinpointing the face to each of the name. Weird. So I just watched this movie too. So Peter plays Michael. He is the man who comes to help his friend who is a drug addict, and Vinny plays the drug addict. So, they're the core of the movie, and I think they work great together. There was a lot of, I think Vinny's character, Chris, has a lot of, like, one-liners and just, like, snarky comments that I think were pretty funny. Sometimes, if I'm writing as well, it's like you're trying to make this humor into the script, and you're putting like these just like, in your face absurd comments that you're like one-off things that you are trying to get a laugh out of. But I think it does work. There are definitely some misses, but overall, sometimes he says some things and he like roasts Michael, and it's pretty fun. Like their friend dynamic is pretty cool. Peter is very like, Peter, who plays Michael. I'll just go by the character names for now. So Michael, who has a pregnant wife and is coming to help his friend. He's very stoic and he feels very know-it-all. And that relationship dynamic in the movie is like, it is the core of the movie, and they need to resolve their issues together because Chris, of course, not wanting to go to rehab, would rather end his life than get off drugs. And Michael, it's revealed throughout the movie that he's kind of doing this for his own selfish reasons of like feeling good about himself. And yeah, in the end, it's a lot of it's dealt with, but then there's the twist at the very end. But throughout the film, that is definitely there definitely is a few points where you're like, okay, maybe you should actually uncuff him and like get out of there. And Michael's character, very, very stoic, kind of, you think he's doing it for the right reasons, then it's revealed is kind of like more selfish, but then in the end, he definitely still cares about Chris, which is, their relationship at the end is, it follows a good arc. It gets weakened, and then at the end, it comes back really strong. So, they're the main characters. They're great. A few other side characters. I feel like there's only a few other scenes with some side characters. We have Zan McLaren. Man, I'm so bad with just reading names. I really need to like practice like saying them out loud before I do this. But he plays Charles. He is the native security guard. I believe he's a security guard. They're on native land apparently, and they didn't know that at the very beginning. So he comes by and says, "Hey, you got to get out of here." And then Michael pays him off so that he can help Chris detox for a week. And he comes back later in the story when we're kind of getting these weird messages on Michael's computer, and you see that they kind of know that something is up with the land. Charles kind of knows something's up with the land, but you never really get an extent of how much he knows. And what I was saying about the coming back on the footage at the end, it's revealed when they're looking at they're looking at the laptop, and it has footage of them. They think it's right now, but then there's footage of people coming in to the cabin and like beating them up, and then I believe it's right after that there's footage of Charles shooting them, which didn't actually happen in the narrative. That's the theory we'll go with for now. I'll get more into that later. But yeah, he he's good. He's good. Side character. Also, another side character, we have Billy and Mika, who are the two, like, the drug dealers that come by and who apparently Chris owes money to or owes drugs to. He said he would get them their money back. And they come by and, yeah, they're just generic thugs. But hey, they play their part well. You have the cult members that are played by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, which are their characters that they play in The Endless. Get more on that later. But yeah, they were there for a quick scene. You think that they're part of like a church group. They're all dressed in white. There's one other member beside those two. I don't know who actually played that. But and then they say that they want to teach them about some celestial learnings. And you're like, okay, some cult activity here. So yeah, they're in that. And I think their cameo, it's like just a throwaway in the first one. I don't know if they meant it to kind of evolve into the narrative in The Endless. But yeah, they're kind of just like in the first one, appear for a second, and that footage appears in The Endless. Then we have two other characters I wanted to note on. We have the retailer, who, like, that was like the most forgettable scene in the entire... I don't know why that scene was in the movie. It's like he comes back and this retailer is like saying to Chris, oh yeah, man, you could get like so much money for this place, and like, oh, you guys are renting? Oh man, that's too bad. You could have gotten so much money. And he like wanted to like scam this retailer who just happened to show up. I don't know what that added. I don't know why he was there, but yeah, he was like funny, quippy retailer guy, which was weird, but yeah. And then lastly, which one of my favorite scenes was the character Byron, played by Bill Oberst Jr. He lives in a trailer, and he is the owner of the dog. I believe they named the dog Sarah, or Chris named the dog Sarah, who dies because Billy and Mika kills the dog in protest because they didn't get their drugs. And yeah, he goes to the guy in the trailer to tell him that, hey, your dog died. And then he has a very like ominous, creepy scene where he uses a mirror and he talks about why people come to this forest, and talks about like reality and smokes some stuff. But yeah, that scene's great, and I really, really liked his performance. So yeah, those are kind of the main characters. The film also, I was gonna say, I think I said $20,000 budget. Very cool. Shot in 17 days. Very low budget feel, and you can tell like with these like more outskirt locations that it's like so doable on that kind of budget. You need a cabin, you need some natural locations, and you need a trailer. And like, I think he went to a store once, and it was like mainly just the outside of the store. Like, yeah, it's very bare bones, and it's just, yeah, you can do so much with so little. Moving into the narrative and some of the kind of plot elements I wanted to touch on. The very first scene, I knew something was off, and I think it's a very good setup for the movie, because, let me rephrase that. I think that it could turn a lot of people off, but in hindsight, it is a good setup, because the first scene in the movie is Michael, he's at home, and he's looking on his computer, a message sent from who he thought was Chris. And it's footage of him just like in the forest near the cabin, like shooting at birds, yelling, going crazy. He's super drugged up. He's throwing things around. And like, it's shot from a bunch of different angles, right? And what it says in the story is like, oh yeah, Chris sent me this video. But he never ended up questioning like, why was it filmed from so many different angles? Why was it cut together like this? There's a map as well attached. And so I watched it at the beginning and I was like, this doesn't make sense. He's literally sending, why would he send him this footage? That doesn't make sense for one. Yeah, who's filming this? Doesn't make sense for two. Yeah, those are the main things. And so that kind of threw me off. But in the end, it's revealed that this weird sci-fi entity is able to like record and like give them playback on things that may not have actually happened. So it's like a nice subtle, like starting it off with an kind of like throwing you off, a little unnerving, like why is this happening like this? So I thought that was cool, and just at the same time, in the moment, I was like, what is happening? Is this just sloppy filmmaking? But yeah, that was weird at the very beginning. And then what? He goes, he tells his wife, I think it was an important part, that he tells his wife that, yeah, he's going to go help his friend. And the wife says, oh, no, you shouldn't go. This isn't a good idea. I believe that line was like echoed at some point in the movie. I think it was like on one of the recordings. And little did he know that was the last time he was ever going to see his wife. You wouldn't know that from this story, but maybe you would if you infer the end. But in the Endless, it gets into a lot of that. So, yeah, he goes to the isolated cabin, and it's a low-key sci-fi premise disguised as a drama about getting his friend off of drugs, right? And I really, really dig the low-key sci-fi aspects, as I do for a lot of movies. And it's funny because in university, my thesis film, I made a film that was about somebody feeling like he was being watched by just the environment around him. And this movie did it like to like a way higher level. This is like, I would love to have made this movie. It's just funny, that parallel. And it's the creepiness, it's hard. I'm still learning as a filmmaker, and it's hard to get that like creepiness and have the proper plot elements that will actually work within the narrative. And they very clearly, meticulously like planned out everything. And yeah, I love this kind of cosmic feel like you're being watched. It could be a metaphor for something, right? But then it's so physical in their world that it has to be some sort of sci-fi deity, which is really cool. So, yeah, he goes. He handcuffs Chris to the pole in the house, and he just chills with him for quite a long time. Trying to think of other notable things. Yeah, he tased him, and then there's the part in the middle where what happens? He goes to hand him, what is it? Not a beer. He goes to hand him or he goes to put nuts or some sort of food on like a table nearby or stool nearby, and he thinks that he's finally gone to sleep. He hasn't slept in so long. And then he comes in and attacks him and tries to get him to unlock him. So it definitely follows a very like, I don't want to say generic, but very constructed like drama where it's like, oh yeah, he locks him up and he rebels at first, and then they kind of get comfortable with each other. Then in the end, he really doesn't want anything to do with him. He still is feeling suicidal, and in the end, they kind of come to terms. So you have that again, like I said, the drama elements, and then so let's just start talking about the sci-fi premises. In this scene, what I really liked about it, there was a line at the very end of the scene. He says, "How does an isolated tribesman in Ecuador tell the difference between an alien, an angel, and a ghost?" He doesn't, but he tells a story to make sense of the infinite. And I don't think I 100% understand that line, but I do get pieces of information from it. So it's like, in this movie, you have this unseen force, this deity that's kind of giving them these clues, and you're not really sure what they want. He's saying, how does an isolated tribesman tell the difference between an alien, an angel, and a ghost? So this deity is something out of their power, and maybe like if we like transfer this to real life, any supernatural inferred god or higher power, people on Earth are kind of just assuming their one, intentions, and two, like their purpose. So in this movie, I guess it connects a lot to the Endless, which I want to keep the Endless talk till kind of the end there. In this movie, you have this force, and you don't know what their intentions are. Along this line of thinking, this movie seems to be very much about how it's like an anti-horror movie. It is tagged as a horror movie, but throughout the movie, this thing keeps giving them hints to go to this place, or it shows them this place, and it's like, oh yeah, it wants me to go there. And in the end, they realize that, oh, we don't want to leave because we don't want this to keep impacting or I guess Michael doesn't want to leave because he doesn't want it to keep impacting his life with his pregnant wife. So he's like, okay, we need to finish whatever story is going on here. The deity keeps on making them go places that are kind of like, I don't want to say generic, but a lot of times it's like in horror movies, people go into the forest. Maybe they go into this creepy cave, right? That's one place that they send him, this old shack. these cult members. Those are kind of like horror movie elements that are like kind of just plugged in there and saying that these stories could have happened. This could have gone a very, very different way, but they kind of avoided all those. And the story that they decided to tell was the one of the two guys kind of coming together in the end and actually rekindling their friendship. And then the very last shot of the movie, you have the whatever god rise up, and they say, "Oh, do you want us to do it another way?" Because as if it's not satisfied with the story. And at the very end of the quote that this guy says here, he says, he doesn't, but he tells a story to make sense of the infinite. I think with that line, it's like people in real life, they tell stories to make people feel seen, and it kind of makes sense of the world. You watch a movie, and like that's the point of movies, right? You watch a movie and you relate to it on one way or another, whether it's very transferable to your life or if it's just you're feeling the emotions of the character. It helps us make sense of our emotions, kind of helps us stay sane, and the power of story. It's hard to put into words sometimes, but I think a lot of people know what I'm talking about here. In this movie, we don't know what this deity is like, and one theory could be like it keeps on making these people do these stories in the way that they want because they're kind of just like my thought is like it's living forever, and it's trying to like just make them do stories in a certain way and in a impactful way that it's trying to get some sense of meaning from it. Theory one, that's theory one. Theory two is more along what I was saying with the kind of the horror movie tropes, that they kind of don't go down those paths. With that, I'm losing my train of thought real fast as I'm talking here. In this movie, there's a lot of times where the camera kind of does this like rolling shutter sound. This frame kind of gets into like a burnt film reel look for like just half a second. And I think they only acknowledge it like once, where they're like, "Oh, why did you hear that?" And then like Chris just plays it off like, "Oh, it's just an old creaky house, whatever." So this is a lot more playing with the viewer, this train of thought, that the viewer has these expectations for how the story's going to go. And I see those kind of moments, those moments of the film reels, as like it could have gone down a different path. There could have been an alternate reality that happens here. So many multiverses movie. Maybe my mind's just in a mode of, oh, every small decision branches off into a different maybe I'm just like too multiverse brained out after Everything Everywhere All at Once and No Way Home and everything. But yeah, it feels like a commentary on how viewers are watching these movies, and just like this guy was saying, using them to try to make sense of the endless. In this movie, marketed as a horror movie, it ends up with them getting together and resolving their issues. And if we're thinking about story arcs and the title of the film, Resolution, the main sci-fi elements kind of come at the very end of the movie, near the resolution. That's where it all erupts, during the resolution. And it feels like the deity wasn't satisfied with the resolution. And if that's representing the audience, it's like it's not a horror movie resolution that they expected. So they wanted to like change it up. As in kind of like the god representing the audience is like, why did you do it this way? Do it again. Yeah, that's just my train of thought. Not exactly 100% sure what it means. I'll probably think more about it because I think it is very interesting the way that they tied that into here. But yeah, right after this frame, he pans it to Chris, or not to Chris, to Michael, and his face kind of like encompasses the bit where his face would be if it were just like a window, and it's a very, very cool shot. But the thing that I wanted to point out is when he rotates the mirror and we see Michael's face. If we're thinking about it logically, Michael is not looking at himself in that reflection. It's kind of like a camera trick, but if we're thinking about it logically and giving this movie credit for being smart, he would be looking right at the camera because the camera's looking right at him. So he's looking right at the audience when he does that, kind of like in a way breaking the fourth wall and showing that he's a part of a story that could go many ways. And people are trying to make sense of his story that is unfolding, and he's kind of just shutting it down every time. This is one of the movies where it's like, I feel like there's definitely a bigger, more concise discourse and theories that could happen that I bet the filmmakers definitely have it very down pat. And I would love to hear. Maybe I should look if they have like, I saw one behind the scenes. I think it was of Making the Endless. Yeah, maybe I should look up more like if they have any panels talking about like their theories and just exactly how this world works. But again, I would respect it if they were just like the filmmakers where they were like, oh no, it's up for interpretation, because yeah, the mystique kind of like gets you thinking and is really cool. But if I have like a solid idea of what it was actually about, then that it just feels like it would be satisfying. It's just a movie that makes you think. It's a movie that makes you think, and I love that. If we're talking about these clips, or let's start talking about the clips that they're sent from this deity in the form of this old tape recorder that he brings back to the cabin. And Chris is kind of just like the whole time, like, where are you getting these? What you're just going crazy. Do you have like a split personality? That's what he keeps telling him the whole time. But he's like, no. Look at this footage. It starts off where it makes the audience think, oh, it could just be recorded from outdoors. But then they realize that this angle doesn't work. They get more footage. They got some conversations that just never happened. In the context of this story, it's like these are the stories that could have happened that they're trying to actively avoid. Or, my theory, if I'm just multiverse brained, these actually already happened and they're pre-recorded. And maybe it's like, it's the God's way of telling them, hey, this already happened, so maybe like do it a different way just to like, please me. Let's play around, It's like when your drama teacher tells you like, humor me. We had a joke in high school drama where it was like, oh, this one teacher, every time we do rehearsals, she doesn't give us specific notes. She's just like, humor me on this. And that's what the God is doing with these guys. They're like, okay, you already did this way. Yeah, we see how the story ends if you go down this route. But hey, let's try it this way instead. It's directing the movie for these guys. Okay, I think I'm going to start talking about the movie The Endless, because it definitely connects to this movie. Okay, when I first started watching this movie, with like him walking up to the guy shooting, the guy being handcuffed on the pole, I was like, I've seen this movie. Wait, have I seen this movie before? But then I watched it, I'm like, no, I definitely haven't seen this, but like it feels so familiar. And it's because I watched The Endless like 2 years ago. And I'm just like forgetting a lot of what happened. But I did my research and I went back and I didn't rewatch The Endless, but I just kind of got like recaps on it and watched a few select scenes. So in The Endless, this is this small cinematic universe. In The Endless, it's very much, the sci-fi elements are the forefront. And visually, it's less ambiguity. There's less ambiguity. You see that these people, played by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, I think their names are just Justin and Aaron, who were in Resolution, who are the cult members. They escaped this cult, but then they got a mysterious message. And then they were like, I think it was Aaron who's like, oh, come on, we this was like our whole childhood and we escaped from it, but we should really go back and kind of tie up these loose ends of like, I don't know what, or here, let me get off this, of what could have been, of what, yeah, they just need to tie up some loose ends, get some closure on the situation. Nothing wrong with that. So they go back to this, they keep on referring it as a UFO death cult, is what they keep on saying. Or at least that's what Justin keeps on saying, because he's the control freak in the duo. And yeah, this movie's The Endless is definitely about their dynamic of him being a control freak over his brother, and they learn to resolve that in the end. So in a way, it is very, I do like the structure where it's like, yeah, these two people, they kind of have their own personal conflict with this overarching sci-fi elements. Love that genre. So yeah, they go back to this UFO death cult. Everything seems cool. They make comments where it's like, oh, you guys look so young and healthy. It seems like you haven't aged. And they're just like, yeah, natural living, living and living off the grid, doing our own thing. And then Aaron's like, oh yeah, man, this is cool. Yeah, I just have fond memories of like campfires and good food and everything and friends. And it gets revealed that Justin kind of just blackmailed him into saying, oh yeah, there's this whole like suicide, there's this whole like darker side to it, you gotta get out of here. And he's just starting to believe that no, he was just feeding me lies this whole time. And then it's revealed in the end that this area, this Bermuda Triangle area in this outback of the USA, is not a whole time loop, but contains domes of time loops, all at different time intervals. And the connection to resolution is because when Justin is kind of he gets lost in the forest, he finds the trailer that the man was in the resolution. He finds the house that resolution was set. And he talks to Michael and Chris. And they're stuck in a time loop, reliving that same week in resolution for eternity. And so that's where it gets interesting with resolution. Because in the endless, it kind of seemed like, do people, thinking about logistically about these time loop scenarios. So you have the domes. In the main cult area, it's a 10-year window. You live 10 years. There's this giant rapture suicide thing. And then it all resets. They're the same age. And the one thing I'm like, do they remember everything that happened? Because I feel like they looked back and they were like, oh, are they going to come back? That's what it felt like. But if it's 10 years ago, maybe they left 10 years ago and they're thinking that they're looking back at the old 10-year-old Justin and Aaron as they just drove off for the first time. Okay, maybe that makes more sense now. But no. The other guy in the shack. So there's a scene where I feel like you really have to see these two movies to understand what I'm talking about. But there's a scene where there's a guy in the shack. Justin goes to investigate him, and it seems like he just had hung himself. He finds a body hung, but then he turns around and he is right there. So his time loop, which I believe was like 3 hours, it's like a few hours. And he says to him that every 3 hours it resets, but killing myself on my own terms to reset the time loop is better than the deity to do it. So he clearly does remember. Okay, I just wanted to establish that. Okay, I guess people do remember, but it seemed like in the scene in the Endless, there's this inconsistency that when their time loop resets, Michael and Chris seem to not know what just happened previously. And so that feeds into my theory of those messages that they're getting are scenarios that have already happened. And they're getting messages, they're getting these videos and recordings from the deity of things that happened, and the deity is telling them, hey, do it a different way. This already happened. It already happened, a scenario where the security guard, the native guy, came and killed you guys. There's a scenario where the two drug dealer guys come and they beat you up, right? More not generic, just conventional horror movie endings, resolutions. So that's where it gets weird, where it's like, I guess they don't remember, because in the Endless, it feels very clear that they don't. But Michael does set the cabin on fire on his own terms, and he walks in as if he'd done it before. So, like, I feel like there is an explanation. They definitely have thought a lot into this world. I'm just not understanding it this whole way, but it's weird. And I think that in the Endless, here, let's just talk about the Endless in the world. So you have like these totems that mark the borders to these time loop areas, and then they're all in different intervals. You have that one guy whose interval is literally 3 seconds. He stands up, he explodes into blood, it seemed like, and then he gets teleported back, and he's right back in the seat. what am I trying to... I'm trying to connect this back to resolution. I forget what I was going to say. I was going to say that... if we're going back to that guy who was saying... The guy in the trailer who was saying that you're trying to make sense of the infinite. In this movie, in The Endless, building on the world from resolution, these time loops are endless, right? That's why it's called that. And it's trying to relate it to real life, where sometimes you can get stuck in your way, feel like you're repeating the same very actions, and breaking out of that is something really hard to do. And in this movie, none of them do that, right? None of them break out of the loop, because Justin and Aaron aren't technically in the loop. But where am I going with this? I had a train of thought and I'm losing it. Both of these character narratives, the drama narratives rather than the sci-fi, are about these guys that are kind of stuck in their waves, and they learn to get over that. There's something else I was going to say, and it was going to be cool, I swear. Right, these endless time loops. They talk about it in The Endless, where Aaron debates Justin, saying that maybe I would rather live eternally, instead of going back to our own lives where we work as cleaners. And making sense of the infinite and these time loops. It's kind of like, what was this deity before? And it feels like the deity is it's toying with everybody, right? Because it kind of wants these different outcomes. Why would you want to be stuck in the same routine? Maybe it's kind of like the argument against that, where it's like, yeah, it kind of would suck. You have to make your own definition of making sense of this infinite, right? And yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to connect to The Endless. Yeah, the guy in the trailer isn't in The Endless. We see the trailer, and it's just a note where it's like, oh, I'm gone at this date, but then the year is question marks. So it's like, is he in a time loop? If he is, wouldn't he be in that general vicinity? But maybe he's in a time loop already in resolution. I'm sure there's like some inconsistencies maybe you could point out in these two movies, because yeah, it's just, I like the world that they build, and that scene with the man in the trailer in resolution was very cool. I liked it a lot. There's these, maybe it kind of gives a sense that these old students that went into the forest were kind of like onto something before the characters in these two movies. They had their own story to tell, and they got lost in the forest. And maybe there are even some characters in The Endless that we just don't know about. And they decided to join the time loop UFO death cult. But I think my brain's running dry here. I think that's all I'll say for now. But yeah, a lot of this talk today was about resolution and The Endless. And I think, yeah, of course, now that I know the story of both of them, I think it definitely brings up, Endless definitely brings up resolution. I don't know how much resolution really adds to The Endless, because The Endless in itself, you can watch it. Maybe that scene with Chris and Michael, you might be like, okay, weird, but okay, and move past it. But resolution gets better because of The Endless, definitely. But as a standalone, before I even looked into everything, I really, really did like resolution. And the ending, if we're thinking of it as a movie on itself, it was made previously, so it was made without this whole part of Endless being made. It is still very solid about a deity watching them, and about resolutions of stories going down different paths, and what could have happened in this ending, and horror movie tropes. And yeah, in the end, it's not really a horror movie. Sometimes I find that like these cerebral, as they say, Lovecraftian horror movies, this one definitely doesn't feel like, it's not that scary. There's a monster at the end, but I wouldn't classify it as horror. I would classify it more as a mystery and mystery bordering sci-fi, very subtle sci-fi, and a drama. But in the end, this is the kind of movie I love. I've said it a million times. This would be the kind of movie I would love to make. It feels very thought out. It takes a while to get people engaged with it, which could be one of its downfalls. And it clearly has a lower budget, which again adds to that. Maybe some people might be a little turned off by it. But hey, I really, really liked it, and definitely on my alley. Would recommend watching both those movies, Resolution and The Endless. And I feel like a lot of people are fans of these two, but I feel a lot of people that I know, I don't know if there's many people in my like friends circle that has talked to me about these movies or has even seen these movies. I know people on Letterboxd that I follow, maybe friends from university that has seen them, but yeah, I highly recommend them. They're up my alley. If you have a similar taste to me, then hey. If you like coherence, let me say that if you like coherence, I think you could dig this world if you get into it. If you liked this movie, you're gonna love coherence. But indie sci-fi, love it. I feel like I should get more into more deeper ones because these ones still feel a little more mainstream indie, which is just a what's that word, oxymoron. But still, big fan of Resolution. I gave it a 8 out of 10 on Letterboxd. Again, Letterboxd, they don't mean anything. It's just a rating of, I don't know. It's just a number. The more I think about Letterboxd reviews, it's like people debate like, oh, should this be half a star more, half a star less? It's like, it feels weird to define this mark. I talk about this every time, and I say, oh, Letterboxd reviews, they're nothing. Letterboxd ratings, whatever. But yeah. Would recommend watching this and The Endless. And yeah, that's going to do it for today. I had a good time talking about that. These indie sci-fi movies I could talk about forever, of course. Next week on, let's see what is next week. Next week is May the 2nd. May the 2nd at 7 p.m. I had a few options. But I think I'm going to go with a classic filmmaker that I've never seen a film from. And it's on Canopy. I get Canopy free from my library, so if you want to watch it, I feel like it is a fairly accessible program that I feel like I got it through my university previously. Now I can get it through my library, so there's probably a way to watch this movie for free. I'm going to choose Rashomon by Akira Kurosawa. Rashomon. How do I spell this? I'm totally not spelling this correctly. Rashomon. Oh, I thought it was Rashomon. Rashomon. From 1950. So, yeah, this is the oldest one that I will dive into. But people always tell me, gotta watch Akira Kurosawa. Never seen one. Never seen what is it, Seven Samurai. But yeah, 1950. Not very long. It's not a huge commitment. Don't know too much about it. Crime, drama, mystery. Sure. I don't know what Akira Kurosawa is all about, really. Again, never seen any of his movies, really. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It says watch on Plex TV. There's so many streaming services I'm just, like, learning about, like Tubi and... Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure there's a way to watch it. Top-rated movie, number 146 on IMDb. Nominated for 1 Oscar. Best art direction, set decoration, black and white. Was there separated for colored and black and white? And I didn't know this. Here, let me set black and white. Set decoration color. Wow. That's a Oscar fact that I didn't know. Huh. They had a separate art direction category for black and white and color movies. That's interesting. And I never knew that. And Rashomon lost to The Bad and the Beautiful. All right. You learn something new every day. But that's going to about do it with this Ciné-club stream. Again, yeah, Resolution was a good time. Had a lot of fun talking about it. Next week will be Rashomon. And hey, if you're here, I appreciate it. And I will see you next week. Hope you have a lovely night. Thank you for tuning in to the Film Spot. Film Talking Weekly Ciné-club. Twitch.tv/thefilmspot. Every Monday, 7 p.m. EST.